Welcome to the new podcast, A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike, hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Pace, with retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, former professional baseball player and member of Cincinnati's Big Red Machine, The Glue, Doug Flynn.
My brother Frank, how are you, pal?
I'm doing really good today. I'm very excited about our guest.
Oh, me too. This is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I've been I was a Giant fan when I was a kid in New York, and when they traded Willie back to the Mets, I've been a Met fan ever since.
Well, we're going to bring him on right away because we're going to need all the time we can get with him. Doug Flynn, how are you,
Doug,
my friend?
The glue.
Hey guys, I'm doing awesome, man. We got some of your weather back here in Kentucky today. It's about 86, perfect. Good time to do some talking and then fish a little tournament tonight.
Are you fishing in a little tournament tonight? Where are you fishing?
We're going down to Harrington Lake, which is only about 30 minutes from here. My brother and I are fishing a tournament. This will be our first night event. There'll be about 80 boats in it, and if he fishes well tonight, we're going to make a couple $1,000. If he doesn't, I'll be coming back at like 5 in the morning, taking a couple little nap, and then getting ready to go to church.
Good. So, Doug is the sole responsible man for the Cincinnati Reds winning Big Red Machine, winning world championships 2 years in a row. And why don't you tell that story, Doug? You always teach, Johnny always teases you, or you always teach Johnny Bench about your time with the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, Frank, for so many years, all we heard about was the Great Eight. And if you read any book on the Big Red Machine, you would think they had no pitching and no extra guys. There were just 8 players that went out and played. Now, having said that, you got 4,256 hits at third base. You got a 5-time Gold Glover at short.
Dave Concepcion.
2-time MVP, Hall of Famer at second.
Joe Morgan.
You got a Hall of Famer at first. It's probably the best RBI man I ever saw.
Tony Perez.
You got a Hall of Famer behind the plate who's probably the best catcher I ever saw.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah. You got a left fielder, a guy who hit 50 home runs and drove in 140.
George Foster.
Center fielder who won 4 Gold Gloves, was probably the smoothest center fielder that I think, him and Gary Maddox, that I ever saw.
Was that Bobby Tolan?
No, that was Cesar Geronimo.
Oh, Cesar Geronimo.
And then right field, you had a Ken Griffey, the real Ken Griffey, senior.
Wow.
And then, so I knew that, I wasn't going to get a lot of playing time. I was a rookie in 75. I went down to spring training and somehow I had a very good spring, made the team, and then was there for the couple of years. We won the World Series. Well, one night they're doing a statue presentation in Cincinnati. I believe it was Joe Morgan's statue. So they brought the Great Eight in, and so I was emceeing a deal on Friday night and got an opportunity to introduce those guys, probably 400 or 500 people there. So I may have had a glass of wine, or I may not have. I introduced them, and once I introduced them, I said, ladies and gentlemen, the most overrated group of players in the history of the game. And people are looking at me like, what is wrong with this boy? And I said, well, here's the deal. 1970, these guys sitting right over there were pretty good, but they got beat by Baltimore. In 1972, those same guys came back and they got beat by Oakland. 73, the Mets beat them, so they never really got out of the league. 74, they disappeared. And then this little country boy from Kentucky makes the team in 75. They win the World Series. The little country boy comes back. They win the World Series again in 76. Trade him away in 77 and don't win again. You do the math. The glue. So the guy in the back of the room hollers, the glue. So Frank knows I've always wanted to do something. And to this day, continue to do a lot of stuff with the military. So we had these shirts made up and hoodies and stuff, and it says the glue 1975-76 Doug Flynn, and all the proceeds go to Hope for the Warriors, which is a military charity that Johnny and I are still involved with.
Why don't you talk about your relationship with Johnny a little bit? How has it evolved over the years?
Frank, it's much better, and it's actually very good. I mean, we're dearest of friends now. And the days when I played, a lot of folks didn't realize what pressure was on those guys. They were the best team to never win it, so there was a lot of pressure to live up to expectations. They had hitting titles, home run titles, MVPs, Gold Gloves, but they didn't have World Series, so there was a lot of pressure. So they were so good to us as young people. I didn't really hang out that much with them because Sparky didn't want us to. But they took all of us who weren't everyday players and sort of took us under their wing. They showed us how to be professional ball players. As I got a little older, started doing a lot of charitable work, and Johnny and I would meet on this little celebrity golfers tour thing that we were on. And so we'd get up and sing some, and we'd do it along with the Gatlin brothers. And then every now and then Smokey Robinson would be there and a lot of other entertainers. And our friendships just started to grow. And so one day I just said, "Hey, John, I got this little golf tournament up in Lexington, Kentucky. Would you like to come up to it?" He went, "Yeah." He'll kill me for telling you this story, but he came up, and for 2.5 days, Frank, he was as good as you can be. And for a half a day, he wasn't. So the next year, I didn't invite him back. And he calls me about 2 weeks before the tournament, and he said, "You still having the golf tournament?" "Yes, sir." "I guess my invitation got lost in the mail." I went, "I didn't send you one." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, Johnny, for 2.5 days, you were wonderful. For a half a day, you just weren't." And I understand that. If you don't want to come here and be a good guy for 3 days, that's fine. You can find something else. And we both got kind of tickled. And he said, "So you don't think I can be a good guy for 3 straight days?" And I went, "No. I've known you since '74. No." And we both got a good chuckle out of it. He came up, was unbelievable. He brought all of his team, bats, balls, everything. We asked him if he wanted to be a co-host of the tournament, and he continues to do that for over 20-something, almost 30 years probably now. And his heart is so good. Those of us that have never been, of course you have, Frank, because you're around a lot of great players and actors and stuff. The demands upon them and the stupid stuff that's asked of them is ridiculous. Something that us guys, like myself, we didn't have to worry about. But the only time they get busy with me is if they want me to go get Johnny's autograph for them. So, but I got a chance to see how demanding and what all went on with his life. And to this day, I love him to death. He's down in Florida. He still comes to our tournament. We do probably 3 to 4 events a year for the military as well as the children's charity. And he's raising 2 kids now at age 72 or 3. He's got a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. So Mr. Mom is at home, and he gets them up, helps them with homework, fixes their breakfast, takes them to school, picks them up. And
he loves it. And he loves it.
I talk to him probably twice a week.
Wow. That's great. That's great. Why don't you tell us a little about the children's charity? That's how we met. I wear this in homage to what you guys have done over the years.
This was supposed to have been our 41st. I think this will be our 41st. We were going to have this big deal on our 40th, and then of course COVID hit. So we actually, for the first time since I've been involved with it, we didn't have a tournament. And then so this year we're kind of putting together something. It's kind of the last hurrah for a few people, and we started out with some great people. And Rob Bolton, as you know, was our first chairman, and then Jim Richardson, a dear friend of yours, was our next chairman, and then Kim Sweezy, and then we moved to Molly Brennan, and now Matthew Mitchell is kind of the chairman. We've raised over $17 million for kids, and it's one of the most gratifying things I think that I've ever been a part of. Had an opportunity to. What's so fun, or was so fun for me, Frank, is being able to pick up the phone and call people who are friends and say, "We got this little event going on in Lexington," and not really telling them how big the event really was. And they say, "Yeah, we'll come in and play," and then all of a sudden they see you raising $500,000 or more each year, and they're thinking, "Wow, pretty special." But the friendships that I've made out of this, and thanks to you, because you would always come in, and man, you just went over and beyond, and you gave me some good lessons too when it came to inviting people. I know that.
In what respect is that?
He would Frank would produce our entertainment. We do a cabaret show, and it would be anybody from, a lot of friends in the business that would come in and do that. So, Yeah, I'm proud, and Frank, you ought to be proud of it too, because you helped us get to the point where we, were very successful, and each year we could almost count about how much money we were going to bring in.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, the 25th year, we actually topped $1 million in the 25th year.
And you know what? On our 40th, we were on our way to do $1 million again.
Right.
But then COVID hit it, and when COVID hit, I mean, we already had pretty much the money laid out and ready to roll. And then that hit. Now they've made a few changes with it. They're going to take it down to a one-day golf event, and there's a lot of changes going on with it. And,
well, I'll always have a dear spot in my heart. But my daughter Erin went to UK just because of the friendships that I made there, and that I knew I could have people like Olga and Doug and Jim and Stacy Richardson watching over, keeping an eye on her in Lexington, Kentucky, and I really loved that place. I really loved that place.
There was a time one year you were in town more than I was.
Well, and that must have went over really big at Central Bank.
Yeah. The word is people say, so how long have you worked at Central Bank? And I went, well, we probably need to structure that a little different. How long have I been employed at Central Bank? And believe it or not, it's been almost 24 years now.
You're originally from Kentucky, correct?
Yeah, from here in Lexington.
You're from here in Lexington. You have a life that Billy, I, and Derek, and almost every male could aspire to. Great golfer, great softball player, UK basketball player, UK base. Did you play baseball at UK?
I was on the team.
You were on the team.
I got 9 at bats my freshman year, and then was told. It's a long story, but basically you're not Division I material. So
yeah,
and you know what, Frank? They were probably right. I was
you're a major league material, but you were not Division I material.
Well, I was at Kentucky when I played basketball and baseball. I was 5'8", about 147 pounds. When I went away to junior college, I basically grew 3 inches. I started getting my arms stronger, my quickness got a little better. I just basically was a late bloomer, but I never quit playing. I was sitting there. Hey, if I do a book, will you write it for me?
Billy will.
I don't know about
Billy will.
I have to put myself in the shoes of Doug Flynn. That's for sure.
So, here's my idea.
Okay.
Every book that's been written has been written about the Great Eight.
Right.
So I went to a book, and the name of it was going to be "And the Rest of the Team." And it was going to be the perspective of us that were not starters, but what were we thinking in those days? How were we preparing ourselves to get ready to play if we were going to play? And, what was our thinking? I mean, those guys, the thought in their mind was probably, I've got every individual award I could get. Now I need a World Series, and I've solidified my name in history. We're thinking, God, I'm making $16,000 this year. If I win a World Series, that's another $14,000. I'm gonna make $30,000. That's as much as my dad makes.
Yeah.
So, but there was a lot of us thinking of that because most of us had to go play winter ball or work in the winter time because money wasn't as good, obviously. But I just thought that'd be a cool perspective. What was Jack Billingham thinking, for instance, who was the ace of our staff? Or what was Darrell Cheney thinking? Or Bill Plummer? Or, I don't know if anybody would want to read it, but you might get a little more insight than you would if you ask guys who are just going to give you a politically correct answer.
Right. That's a good.
That is a great perspective. The guys. Yeah, I mean, I got to ask you, as a member of the Grade 8 team, the Big Red Machine, majors, you went to the World Series, right? Won the World Series.
Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable in itself. But
when you great players that didn't go to a World Series that were just great players, so I was blessed.
Yeah.
Like Rod Grew, Ernie Banks.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. Great ball players that never got to the World Series. But let me ask you, as a layman, the difference between, you were with the grade 8, but you were on the team and you went to the World Series and won a championship. The difference between like AAA and the major leagues. Can you tell our audience something about? I mean, they often say the guy at the very end of the bench that doesn't play is better than all the college players you've ever seen, and why is that?
Well, the game from the first time you step onto a field as a professional, I don't care if you've come out of college or high school, the game gets faster. The biggest difference is as the game gets faster, you're able or you're not able to keep up with it, but also the consistency starts happening. Pitchers from big leagues to AAA, they can't quite find that second pitch for a strike. Hitters are not able to make adjustments if they're pitched a certain way. And so what the difference is, once you get to the big leagues, you better make some adjustments. If you don't, you're gone, because everybody up there learns to adjust if they want to survive and stay in the game. I was not a very good hitter, so I had to learn to do other things. I had to be extra good defensively. I had to learn how to bunt real well, hit behind runners. And that's what kept me in the game. When I look at people like Pete, the Tony Gwynns of the world, guys are just great offensive players. Man, to me, there's something that they get that the rest of us don't have. Make a bad hitter a great hitter? I don't think so. I think you can make a bad hitter a better hitter. But there's something that these guys have in technique, eyesight, strength, whatever it is. But like, I knew guys that I played with that never even took batting practice. They could walk out of bed and go out there and get 2 or 3 hits a game. It was amazing. So the game for 1% of the people that are playing is pretty easy. The game for 99% of us is rough. But the biggest difference, once you get to AAA, you're close. But that consistency that you have to have when you get to the big leagues, you either have it or you don't. But that's probably the biggest thing I see. The defense gets a lot better at the big leagues.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question. You had 9 at-bats as a freshman at University of Kentucky. What did you do between Kentucky, University of Kentucky, and signing with a pro contract? Were you hitting a softball? Were you playing in some softball league? Were you discovered playing in some softball league, or is that a wrong impression that I've got?
Or is that a myth?
A myth.
Yes, because I'm such a legend. It's a myth. Well, actually, I was going to a junior college, and I wasn't playing any ball. But I wasn't playing any collegiate ball. But I was playing 3 nights a week slow pitch softball. I was playing doubleheader baseballs on Sunday with they have a league here called the Bluegrass League, and it's men and college players. And so we had a local team around here that I played on, and so I just continued to play, Frank. And then some friends woke me up one morning and said, "Come on, we're going to go try out for the Cincinnati Reds." And I went, "Okay." So I said, "I don't have a glove or shoes or anything." They said, "Oh no, we got one in the car." What I didn't realize that these guys had watched me start to mature. They'd watched me play, and they had more confidence in my ability than I did. So they picked me up, took me over to this little right behind an elementary school in Somerset, Kentucky, wonderful community. I took 18 hours each semester, 9 during summer school. And I felt like that, maybe there's a chance if I keep developing something. Well, as it turned out, I was getting a scholarship offer to go play basketball at Bethel College in Tennessee. Because I had no offers coming out of high school. I had none after my freshman year except for Bethel College. So my coach at Bethel, or the coach I would have had, his name is Doug Hines. I called him up one day and I said, after the 4th tryout camp, I said, "Coach Hines, I got good news and bad news." He said, "What's the bad news?" I said, "Well, I'm not coming to Bethel College to play basketball." And he went, "Well, I can't imagine any good news then." And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "The Reds signed me for $2,500 and they're going to give me a chance to be a pro." And there was nobody that was a bigger fan or could have been more supportive. So I actually went to rookie league. And while I was in rookie league, the third baseman in Class A ball had to have knee surgery. So my manager was a guy named Dave Pavlicek. He said, "Can you play third base?" I went, "Yeah, played there in high school." So they put me at third base. My manager was Russ Nixon. He said, during the whole time I'm out there, "Doug, move over. No back up. No get in. No come this way." No. The inning's over with. He calls me. He says, "You've never played a game of third in your life, have you?" I went, "Nope." Why in the world would you tell people that you played third? I said, "Look, if they needed a catcher and there was a chance to go from rookie ball to Class A ball, I'd have said, yep, caught in high school." And Russ liked me, and he kind of helped me as I went through the minor league process until '75 when I was invited to camp. And then I had the best spring I've ever had. I went 32 for 90 in spring training.
Wow.
Normally you get, 40, 50 at-bats. If you get that's a lot for spring training. But I got 90. I played every game. Matter of fact, in Riverfront, we're playing the Dodgers, and Pete comes over to me, and I got a great picture of me and Pete looking out across the field, and he says, "It's going to be the first game you haven't played in a while, isn't it?"
So you had a .991 field percentage. That's pretty remarkable. And you played third. Sure. What were you more comfortable? What position did you feel like
Second.
you were? Second.
Oh, yeah. Second, my dad played there, so I had a good arm for shortstop, but I had a real good arm for second. And I worked several ways to turn double plays at second so I could get the most out of my throw. And I think I missed that about the game today. It used to be an art to turn the double play and avoid contact. That was part of the game.
Right.
Now, any contact at all, and they automatically ringing up everybody. And so they've lost that art of really being, slick around the bag where you're able to get it, get rid of it, and not knowing whether I have to go the inside or the out bag. Now you can just turn it one way and know that if anybody hits you, there's probably going to be interference. I don't like that. I think they're really messing with the game a whole lot. It's not good. But people say, "Would you like to be playing now?" Well, let's see. As an everyday second baseman with the average salary over $4 million, that's the average salary.
Wow.
Yeah, I think maybe, but not really, because if it's just about the money, yeah. But I played in an era with, like with your old buddy with Rod. I mean, Rod was in the American League the whole time, but golly, you look at the players that came through during the '70s and '80s. Man, there were some great players, and I think for me, I'm very happy, and as I said, very blessed that to not have any scholarship offers, to get cut from your baseball team in college, go to a junior college, sign out of a tryout camp, and then 3 years later be in the big leagues. Are you kidding me? I'm a very, very fortunate person.
And you talk about playing now. Rod was often asked, what would he hit if he played now? And he always answers, I think I'd maybe hit about 280. And people are always shocked when they said, "You would hit 280. How could that be?" And he goes, "Well, I'm 76 years old. What did you expect?" Modesty. Oh, that's.
He probably still hit 300. I know what, because if they put any kind of shift on him, he'd just stand there and he'd bunt 300.
No, Dougie. He bunted in his career 192 times, and it was successful 157 times. So he bunted 750 in his career.
That's remarkable. Wow.
That's an amazing stat.
I don't. If when I see some of these shifts they put on guys today, and I'm thinking, all you got to do is do it one time. Just be successful one time, and that'll cut all that stuff out. But now it's a different game. It's launch angles, spin ratios. They got stuff out there now that I ain't got a clue what it is. I mean, they're talking about WAR and OPS, and I said, you know what? When I played, there was only two stats that really mattered: W or L.
Yep.
Yeah.
You played behind perhaps one of the greatest second basemen of all time. What was it like playing behind Joe Morgan?
Boring.
Well, now you would play probably 50, 60 games because, Joe would rest.
I played 90 games my first year, and I had 127 at-bats. The second year, I did play the whole month of June. Joe got hurt, so I played the month of June and actually hit 340 something. So, but when you're on that ball club, it breeds success. Just kept breeding success. I mean, the time they got to me in that lineup, they were wore out. So I got a lot of good pitches to hit. And then, of course, you get traded and the game changes. But how would you like to go through that lineup? I mean, you start off with Pete and Joe and Griffey and then Tony and Johnny and golly.
Yeah.
I mean, our pitchers never. I think our ERA was close to leading the league in either both of those years or one of those years. They knew if they kept it under 5 or 6 that there's a good chance we were going to win. But Joe was probably the smartest ball player I've ever been around.
Wow.
He studied. He kept a notebook. He could have had as many stolen bases as anybody that ever played the game, but he only stole when we needed it. He only stole when everybody in the ballpark knew he was going to steal.
Right.
And now you see guys running up, or some of the guys did 7, 8 stolen bases. They 13-3, they're running, and that wasn't him. He respected the game, and I probably learned as much about respecting the game of baseball from those guys as I did from anybody that I've ever around.
Well, you played with 5 different teams in the 10 years, 75 to 85. I would imagine that the team you enjoyed playing for the most was Cincinnati, because I was a Met fan, so I watched you many years with New York, and I loved watching you play. But was the Reds your favorite experience?
Well, it's hard to say winning back-to-back championships is not your best experience.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, when I got to New York, I got a chance to be an everyday player. And, Frank, it's probably like saying, I don't want to be the guy that's walking in the background of one of your shows. I'd rather be the guy that's got a couple of lines. And that was me. I wanted to play.
Yeah.
When I got to New York, of course, he had Buddy Harrelson and Felix Mian were there. Both were getting a little bit older. That whole 69 team was starting to get a little bit older. And I would go out, and Buddy was great. Both of them were. Both Felix and Buddy were wonderful. But I started playing short mostly because Buddy was on his way out. He ended up going over to the Phillies, I think, right after that. And Felix was going to play second. So we were playing the Pirates one night, and Ed Ott slid in hard to Felix, and they got into a little scuffle. And Felix got his collarbone broke, and that moved me over to second. As a matter of fact, to this day, Felix says I stole one of his gold gloves. I told him, I said, well, a couple of people stole a couple of mine too, so that makes us even. But it was a chance to play, and I got to play for Joe Torre. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Joe, if you can't play for Joe, you can't play. He was a player's manager. All he expected was come to the ballpark, get yourself in shape, play hard. If you want to sit out, let me know. And if you had an argument on the field, Joe was the first one that would be right there to back you up. So he always had your back. And I tell people, if you're a pro athlete, there's only one place to play. That's New York, man, because I don't care if you play really good, if you play really bad, you go get your name in the paper.
Yep.
Oh, that's for sure, for sure. And how did you feel being in New York? I mean, you're coming out of Kentucky. Obviously, you're a country and western singer besides, and I understand in New York. Did you ever play at O'Looney's? Did you ever play down there? And I know that was a big country and western spot in New York, O'Looney's, for a long time.
The spot that was hot when we were there was Lone Star Cafe was one, and then there was a place called Cody's back there. All I was doing in the off season, I was a backup singer with a friend of mine's band, and so all of a sudden I get this phone call in the off season that says, "Doug wants you to come to Cody's and headline a show," and I said, "Really?" So I called up my buddy Greg Austin, who I was singing with, and he said, "Good." And then he said, "Man, I don't know if we can pull that." And I said, "All right, let me make a couple of calls." So there was a guy named Dave Thornhill who was the lead guitar player for Loretta Lynn's band, the Coal Miners, and they had been back-to-back country music group of the year. So I said, "Dave, would you go? And I need you to help me kind of put a little band together." He said, "Why don't we just take the whole Coal Miner band?" I said, "Well, there's a very good reason. They're only going to pay me $3,000, and I'm giving that all to the band." He said, "Can you give each player $50 a day?" I went, "Yeah." So I think they paid me $3,500. I gave it all to the band, and we went up, and we knocked it out. Man, it was fun. We had great. All of a sudden, I think we had 18 of us that rolled in there with cowboy hats and jeans and stuff, and we sold it out for 2 straight nights. I mean, and we had a lot of people come. Bobby Valentine and Lee Mazzilli and Elliot Maddox and Tori and just a bunch of people came over to watch us. And it was just a fun gig. Wow. And people in New York seemed to enjoy it.
Wow, that's great. You talk about country singers. Our good friend is Cowboy Joe West, the umpire.
Good friend, Frank. I didn't say my friend.
Everybody's friend. Everybody's friend. But Derek, can you put up a little tribute that was recently aired when Joe said most games umpired in Major League history?
Cowboy Joe, Garth Brooks here. Congratulations on breaking the record. Doing the most games, are you kidding me? And congratulations, because I hear you're not only a country fan, you're everything all about country. That makes me and you peas and carrots, pal. I love you. And again, congratulations.
Oh, that's good. That's great.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a country singer himself, isn't he? This Garth Brooks guy?
Yeah. Country Joe West, that's him.
No, what about that Garth Brooks guy? He's a country singer too, right?
He's pretty good.
So why'd you tell?
Okay, here's what Joe West. We're playing in Houston, and I love Joe. We're good buddies and everything. So we're playing in Houston, tie ball game, bases loaded, and ground ball hit the short. I came across the bag, grabbed it, boom, turn, throw to first base, double play. We're coming off the field. Look back at Joe. He's waving safe at second. And I said, what do you mean he's safe at second? He said, you didn't touch the bag. I said, what do you mean I didn't touch the bag? I start on the bag. And one of the ways I turn a double play, I always start with my left foot on the bag. So that if I got to go whichever way, I can adjust, but I always hit the bag. I said, Joe, you're wrong. I hit the bag. He said, all right, then you came off too quick. And I went, well, which one is it? Now, about this time, Joe Torre's out there. Joe Pignatano's out there. Our pitcher's out there. I think 5 guys got kicked out that night. I'm the only one that didn't. And so he called him safe. We lose the game by 1 run. So now every time I see him now at someplace, I always bring it up. Or he'll bring it up. He'll say, yeah, there's a guy that didn't know how to touch the bag around second or something. So one night we're at this event, and we're sitting there, and it's a nice restaurant. We see Joe. We say hello to him. He gets up and leaves, and all of a sudden the waiter comes over and said, are you Mr. Flynn? Yes, sir. Mr. West has bought you all dinner. And I went, I told you he made a mistake.
I love it.
And why don't you tell me the story about, or tell us the story about your first trip into Los Angeles? I believe it.
Well, my dad went to high school with Harry Dean Stanton at Lafayette High School in Lexington, Kentucky. And they sang in a quartet together. So I make the team. We're going to Los Angeles. My dad says, son, when you get out there, why don't you pick up the phone and call Harry Dean? Oh, sure, Dad. I'm sure he's listed. And, here's a guy that's been doing all kinds of movies. And he's been in, he's very popular at the time. And so I said, all right. So I get there. I'm sitting in a hotel one day. And all of a sudden I think, maybe I will try. So I call up the Screen Actors. See, I didn't know you then, Frank. So I called up the Screen Actors Guild, and I said, my name's Doug Flynn. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. Is it possible to get a message to Harry Dean Stanton? They went, oh, yeah, we give you his voicemail. Oh. So I said, oh, Harry Dean, this is Doug Flynn. I'm Bobby's boy. I'm playing with the Reds. I'm out here for 3 days to play. My dad said, be sure to tell you hello. And I figured, okay, that did it. About 45 minutes go by, the phone rings. Hey, Doug, Harry Dean. Really? He said, how's your dad? I said, he's doing great. Blah, blah. He said, hey, I'd love to come to the game. We'll go out and get a bite to eat afterwards. Okay. I leave him a couple of tickets, and here comes, the game's over with. He comes to the locker room. I see him, and it's very nice, and we go get in the car. And we're headed out to this restaurant, and he stops off first. He said, well, I got to make a stop first. And so he stops off, and this I don't know, beautiful woman comes walking out, and I said, is that for me? And he went, oh, no, that's for me. And she was my age. And Harry Dean's a year older than my dad, so he'd have been 25 years older than me. So I was 24, so Harry was almost 50, I guess, close to it. And then we go to eat, and then here comes Tommy Smothers and Michael Douglas come into the restaurant. And I'm sitting there like a country boy would in a big city. And they come over and sit down. They give each other a kiss, and I'm going, uh-oh, I don't know what this means, but these guys are really, this is cool. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have nothing. I didn't think about getting an autograph. And it couldn't have been any nicer. All of them were as wonderful as they could be. And that was my first trip to L.A., and I thought, wow. So I get home and I tell Dad, Dad, I saw Harry Dean. There's a few more things I probably shouldn't say on a podcast, but there's a Harry Dean couldn't have been nicer. And matter of fact, every time he'd come to Lexington, he'd find a way to call my dad and say hello to him. And I love the special that was done on him about how much he loved music and all the people he was involved with and the things that he did. He was a little different, but he was certainly. I
believe as far as Harry Dean was concerned, there were some herbs involved in that night too, weren't there?
That story. Well, there was one herb that he offered to me, and I turned it down, just like my father. And
I think we have a picture of Harry Dean available here someplace. No, that's Garth.
That's Garth.
That's Garth. How about Harry Dean? There he is. Harry.
Oh yeah.
Harry Dean with Jack Nicholson, and I believe that Harry Dean was the best man at Jack's wedding.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
Harry Dean on the left and Jack Nicholson on the right, and Jack Nicholson on the left. That's a.
Well, you know what used to be our call. My dad we'd all be in the house, and Dad would say, "Kids, hurry up in here to the TV. Harry Dean's about to get killed."
and also, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
It didn't matter which show he was on; he seemed to always get shot.
Yeah, yeah. Also, Jonathan Winters was a big Cincinnati Reds fan, I believe, wasn't he?
Yeah, he came into the locker room one night after we got beaten 75, I think, and he started imitating some of our pitchers. So mad before, and all of a sudden he came in there and he started imitating Pedro Borbon and, acting like he was speaking Spanish, and we were laughing so hard, and it really relaxed the team. But that was what was always so cool coming out to L.A., especially when Joe Torre was there. Shoot, Sinatra might walk in the clubhouse, or just, you never knew who all was going to be around the ballpark. And then you look in the stands, for an old country boy, looking around the stands and seeing all these guys that you watched on TV. Of course, I was so enamored with the guys I was playing with because just a few years before that, I've been watching all them on television.
Yep.
Yeah.
But now I'm playing with them, so it was just a phenomenal year in 75.
And I believe when you were with the Reds, Pete Rose introduced you to your lovely wife, Olga. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. 39 years now, Frank. We did a little seminar this morning where she and I talked together over at our church, and it was a blind date. I was with the Mets. We were going to play
There she
Phillies.
is. There she is.
With Joe, the other guy, that's Joe Bonzel of the Oak Ridge Boys.
Yep.
And we were going to go to have dinner afterwards. So I told Pete, I said, Pete, why don't you tell Carol, who became his wife, to bring somebody, so if you and I get talking baseball, then she can, have somebody to talk to. So I get on first that night, and when I tell the story and I say I got on first, all my friends will go, what happened? Did you walk? Did you get hit? So I get on first, and Pete says, hey, man, I got good news and bad news about tonight. What's the bad news? He said, the girl coming is engaged. And I said, I don't care. I said, Pete, I can get my own dates. So I get the hit and run. I said, Pete, I got to go second on this pitch. What's the good news? And as I'm taking off on the pitch, Pete hollers, she looks good. 8 months later, we got married, and we just celebrated 39 years in February.
That's fantastic.
She's a great gal too.
Philadelphia Eagle cheerleader, and so she's She's pretty special.
39 years is no small accomplishment when you think about this day and age. That's for sure.
So,
Like baseball year, like 143.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
So after the Mets, you got traded to the Mets for Tom Seaver. So it was a pretty good one-on-one trade, right? Tom Seaver for you.
Straight up. Right. They're still making payments on that trade.
But then,
that was kind of weird. We'd won back-to-back, and the paper the day before said Doug Flynn was an untouchable. So I'm sitting on the bench, and I think we're playing the Phillies. And I see Pete being very animated because third base at Riverfront was real close to the third base dugout. So he comes in after the inning's over. He sits down beside me and he pats me on the leg. And I said, "I'm going, aren't I?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "Where am I going?" He said, "You're going to New York." Which one? "You're going to the Mets." "Who for?" "Tom Seaver." I say, "Straight up?" And he said, "No." There's and a couple of homes and so it ended up the four of us going. The headlines in the newspaper: "Midnight Massacre."
Whoa.
I'll be hearing about it soon because it'll be coming up June 15th. As it comes up, there'll be somebody from New York will call me and say, "So how do you feel about it?" And I'm to the point now I say, that's a long time ago, and I've kind of moved on. But that was a big deal. I mean, Tom was wonderful. We've been together, all of us involved in the trade only got together one time. That was on the 25-year anniversary. And we all went to New York and had a fun time, and Tom was outstanding. He's just classy. Great pitcher. And Pat Zachary had a good career in the big leagues. Stevie Henderson stayed, had a 12-year career in the big leagues. Danny Norman's the only one that didn't stay around. And but everybody's doing well. And, you got to be known for something. Well, it was Johnny's fault, Frank. He traded me because they had the deal set and they needed one more player in there. And Johnny says, "Well, throw Doug in there." And I said, "Well, why'd you do that?" He said, "Well, you weren't going to play here."
Well, he sort of did you a favor.
He did me a great favor.
You had already won 2 championships. He had won 2 championships thanks to you. So your work here was done. Now it's time to make a name for yourself. Now it's time to make a name for yourself. So how many years did you spend in in New York, and then what precipitated your departure?
I was there 4.5 years. I signed a 5-year contract in 1980. 1981 was a strike year. We got a new general manager in 1980 by the name of Frank Cashin. And then, so he came in and was going to basically start changing the team around a little bit. And he did. The first 3 people he got rid of were me, Joe Torre, and Lee Mazzilli. And we were kind of the backbone of that team right there. But Frank said he was just going to start, cleaning house. So I was at home one night and the phone rang. I was singing at a club in town and it was late. My dad called me and said, "Son, the Texas Rangers just called and said you've been traded to them." And I went, "Dad, that's just one of my friends messing around." He said, "Well, the guy sounded really serious." I said, "Well, that's one of my friends. I'm sure they did it." So I didn't even call back. So the next day I get a call again from the Rangers and I thought, what is going on? And come to find out, that's what had happened. Frank had come in there and just started getting rid of a few people, even though, I won a Gold Glove in 1980. I was a runner-up in 79, 78, and 81. And he just started making changes, and he did a good job because, in 1986, they were able to win the World Series again.
Right.
So, but I was in Texas just for a few months. That was the weirdest experience. And then I went to Montreal. I was with Montreal for 4 years and loved that. But I was starting to get a little bit older, so I got released in Montreal. I came home. And about 3 days after I got home, Sparky called me and said, "Do you want to finish the season with us?" And I went, "Yeah." So I went up to Detroit, worked out one day. They signed me to a contract. I finished the 85 season, went to spring training in 86, had verbally agreed to a 2-year extension. I was already signed through 86, 87 and 88. And I was happy. Went out to dinner. I got an agent for the first time. We were all excited. Yeah, 2-year extension. supposedly I was going to play one game at short a week, one game at second a week for Trammell Whitaker and let them get a rest. And I went to the ballpark the next day, and they called me in and said, Sparky said, I hate to do this. And I said, Sparky, because I can't play, well, that's when collusion hit.
Yep.
And so a lot of us lost our jobs because of collusion. And but, Frank, people say, well, how'd you feel about that? Look, I signed out of a tryout camp. Did you not hear that?
Yeah.
I said, I got that from a college team, and I spent 11 years in the big leagues. No, you're not going to see anybody complain. Baseball has given me an awful lot, and I'm very thankful for that.
1986 also was the end of Rod's career. And,
oh, was it?
Yes, and he was the first victim of collusion.
Wow.
And he was awarded $1 million in the settlement as the first settlement for guys who got their careers shortened by collusion. And what Billy's got a look on his face, collusion is when the owners decided amongst themselves to reduce their rosters from 25 to 24 players. And the 25th player, a guy like Doug Flynn in Detroit, was the scapegoat. And a guy like Rod, who was a free agent and nobody wanted to sign, was actually Minnesota wanted to sign him. They couldn't because of collusion.
Yeah, you read my face right. I was going to ask you to elaborate on the collusion thing.
I think it cost him like $280 million, didn't it, Frank? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Did you get any of that?
I got a year's worth of. It wasn't what we had verbally agreed to, but I got a year at a little less. But some guys didn't get anything. And shoot, I got friends right now that are still collecting.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, they did well. So yeah, we got a year's worth, and that was fine. Then it got me a chance to come home and just move on. As you well know, there's a lot of guys that can't move on.
There's an awful lot of guys. I would say most guys can't move on.
Glory days, huh?
Yeah.
So
it's
what have you moved on to?
Well, I'm
aside from hunting and fishing.
Well, actually, I don't really hunt. I'm just a fisherman. But I've been at Central Bank now for almost 24 years. I've got, we've done children's charity. I broadcast some for the University of Kentucky baseball team. I was doing Cincinnati Reds broadcasting, but they went young.
Of course.
So I'm just doing UK. Occasionally I'll do some high school stuff, but I've got a few events. Johnny and I are both hooked up with Hope for the Warriors and something called USA Cares, where we're out there trying to help raise money for military families. And that's very rewarding. So I enjoy doing that. And then, Olga and I are just really enjoying each other's company. We don't have any children, so we've been able to travel. Last couple of years we've been to Israel. We went to Italy, and I'm very content when I see a lot of people are, we got the same house that we've been in since 1987. We don't live extravagantly. We just enjoy our community. My parents are 94. Both of them are in assisted living. So spending a lot of time with them and just enjoying life. I'm thankful. I'm now to the point where if you wake up and you're griping about stuff, well, I'm not the person you want to be around.
Yep.
I love life, and I love being around good people and people that enjoy life. It's like you, Frank.
Yeah.
When you come up to our tournament, man, all you saw was, I came one night, I remember problems with some of the music. You said, I got it. Matter of fact, we should have let you produce the show from day one when you got up here. That's Richardson's fault, though, because he wanted to be the star.
Hey, why don't you tell me, you've been around Kentucky for a while. Walker Buehler is the toast of L.A. Did you see him play in high school?
I saw him a couple of times. Yeah, I never imagined he'd be the star that he is now. But I saw him a couple of times, and people here, I don't really know him, but the folks speak very highly of him. Obviously, he's a talented kid. I don't know if he's mad at me because I think one year when they won the postseason, he dropped an F-bomb on national TV, and so I was on Twitter at the time, and I said something about. He says, "But that's the way we Kentucky people are. We get a little excited." And I tweeted back out. I said, "There's a lot of people from Kentucky that have won awards that didn't use that kind of language on national television." And they said he wasn't real happy with it, and that's okay. He was a young kid. I just said, if you're going to do national stuff, you're a professional athlete. There's so many folks that look up to you, and there's a responsibility that goes along with that. It's not right, because I don't think that we ought to put us on pedestal, but some people do, and so at least on national TV, I think conduct yourself, in a proper way. And but from everything I've heard, he's just a good kid, and boy, he's got a magic arm. I know that.
He sure does. He sure does. How's your golf game?
It's suffering a little bit right now. I think I'm a 6 right now.
If you're a 6, that's a hustler 6, because you can go out and shoot in the 60s tomorrow.
Well, you know what's good about this? Now at my age, I get to move up a set of tees. Hey, I'm thinking seriously. I went over yesterday and hit some, and we got the. Oh, you can sympathize with me on this. We got the member next week, and my partner Scott Henry.
Oh my Lord, Scott Henry is a stand-up comic who's going to wear the worst looking pair of pants. No doubt. He's from the John Daly School of golf pants, and I guess he's got a sponsorship by that company, Crazy Pants or whatever they are. And I'm so sorry for you. I'm just so sorry for you, Doug.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna have to look at that, and then I got to listen to it too. Not only it's bad enough you got to listen to him. Now I got to look at him.
Yeah.
So
well, I tell you, in 1999, I got to my first children's charity classic. And I was down on the range. They said there's going to be a long drive contest. I said, so I'm going to show these guys how far I can hit the ball, because I'm pretty long. I'm long. So I go out there, hit a couple shots. Not really my best, but then Doug comes up, and then Johnny comes up, and then a couple of other guys come up, and I said, I'm in the wrong league here. Because
I can't hit far now, but. That's okay. I'm kind of like what Bob Feller. They asked Bob Feller one time, we were doing an event somewhere, and they said, "Bob, do you still throw as hard as you used to?" He said, "Well, yeah, it just don't go as fast."
That's it.
It just doesn't go as far.
That's true.
That's a great line.
That's great line. What else do you guys want to know? You're a country singer. You lost your voice. I know when you had the operation. That was a terrific loss for the country music world. But
see, you've been hanging around Richardson too long. In 1981, when we went on strike, I get a call from the Oaks and say, "You want to go on the road with us for a couple of days?" Well, sure, because we didn't know when we were going to go back to work.
Now the Oaks are the Oak Street Boys.
Oak Ridge Boys.
Yeah.
Oak Ridge Boys.
Yeah, right. That's what I meant.
And at the time, they had a little song out called Elvira, and but I'd met them through Johnny, who I've met a lot of people through Johnny. But so I said, yeah. So I went on the road with them, and one night they were singing at this, I forgot the venue. So I'm backstage, and I'm really enjoying just the trip. I'm hanging out with them. I'm listening to music, hearing stories, riding on the bus. It's a really cool deal. And so I hear, well, we have a friend with us. He's just won a Gold Glove. Bye-bye's a member of the Cincinnati Red, Doug Flynn. So I stick my head out from behind the curtains and say, hey, everybody. And Joe Bonzo says, oh, no. Come on out here. So I go out, and I said, yes, sir. He says, we understand you've been doing a little singing. I said, a little bit. He says, you want to sing one? I went, sure. I said, I know pretty much all your old songs. He went, no. You're not going to ruin one of our songs. Oh, they crank up Hey Good Looking or something. They get to the verse, and they just, all of them. So I just take the verse and go on with it. And they kind of look. I think they thought I'd be embarrassed or afraid to do it. And I went, you know what? I've screwed up in front of a lot more people than this. So, you miss a ground ball or two in front of 50,000 or strike out or whatever. You pretty much don't care what you grab, touch, shuffle, anything. And That's what I told people. They said, "Do you ever get embarrassed?" I went, "Not too much anymore." I said, "You realize I've done things in front of 50,000 people that you wouldn't do in front of anybody, and you're out there adjusting stuff and picking and spitting and doing all kinds of stuff." So I got up and did it. Well, a news writer gets a hold of this thing, and it says Flynn went on tour as if I was singing every night. Went on tour singing with the Oak Ridge Boys. Well, that wasn't exactly true. So we all get a big kick out of that right now because I was just out there with some friends having fun, and I got up and sang one night with them, and still stay in touch with them. Shoot, the youngest one of them now is 73 or 4, and they got a couple pushing 80, close to it. But they're doing 125 nights a year. I don't know how they do it.
Remarkable.
It's got to be
It's
it got to be in your blood. It got to be in your blood. You talk about the game has changed. Rod also often says the longest walk in your life will be the walk back to the dugout from home plate after you struck out. Now,
How would he know?
yeah, well,
Good point.
he struck out a few times, but he said now these guys all walk back to the home plate like they've done nothing wrong. It's incredible.
Play, and it's that way in the college game too. The guys are not protecting them. You get 2 strikes, they're not choking up. They're just same swing, launch angle, and all that. It's just, like I say, all those numbers can really be good, but if you've got great spin ratio but can't throw it over the plate or get anybody out, or if you've got great launch angle but you can't hit it out of the ballpark and it's an out, the bottom line is how many games you win, how many you lose.
Yep.
I read a great quote by you, Doug. You said you learned in the pros, when you got to the pros, you said, just because you can get to the ball, it doesn't mean you got to throw it to first.
I made 30-some errors in AAA ball at shortstop. And I think all but 3 were throwing errors.
Wow.
Because I felt like I could make every play. And that's that part of going from AAA to the big leagues. You realize sometimes you just got to eat it. But when you're trying to impress people, you want them to see everything you've got. So you'll spin and throw and fire and do all of that. I had a bad habit. I finally had to learn. And, it took guys like watching Concepcion and Morgan and those guys play the game and when I should eat it and what plays I couldn't throw. Of course, Davey got to more balls than anybody because he just had unbelievable range. But there were times where, when you're out there, you want to entertain and you want to feel like you can make every play. So you try until you start maturing a little bit and you realize, well, that was stupid.
I should know this, but are you still hosting the Kentucky show?
Yes, but we've been on break for a year now, called Kentucky Life.
Right.
We're hoping to get back. I've been doing it 6 years now, and I was supposed to do it for a month and a half. And so when I started doing it, they kind of liked it a little bit. So I'll be glad when they do, so I can go put some color back in my hair.
Yeah.
Start to get
got the topics you can sprinkle on the top as well.
just a little just for men. It takes 5 minutes. And
Just for men. I got to ask you, Doug, too. You played for some terrific managers, Sparky Anderson, Joe Torre. Who was your favorite manager to play with? And not necessarily the best manager, but your favorite to play for.
Probably Joe Torre.
Yeah.
I love Sparky. Great man, great for the game. Had all the right things to say, but Joe gave me an opportunity to play and to succeed. And I'll always be indebted to him for that. I played for Don Zimmer a little bit, Bill Verdon.
Wow.
But Joe stood out amongst all of them. He was just, Joe's a classy guy. Joe's a great player. And he was a player manager when I first got over there. And then he ended up just being the manager. And I think, truthfully, had they let him make more decisions about who to go out and get on that ball club, we could have been successful. But they were really cutting corners at the time I was there. And we had a bunch of young kids that were, we were decent players, but we were all still trying to find ourselves and get comfortable being in the big leagues and not necessarily act like a big leaguer, but play like a big leaguer. So we had Mazzilli and John Stearns and me and Joel Youngblood and just a lot of young guys that had been backup players. Now we're putting the lineup, and we struggled. We played hard. We never did not play hard. We always went out and played, but we just didn't play real well all the time.
Speaking of the Wounded Warriors, which you were a little bit earlier, My partner, retired Lieutenant Billy O'Connor, was a member of the New York Fire Department for 20 years.
Yes, sir.
And a first responder at 9/11, and I know how close you are with a number of other first responders. Why don't you tell us a little about your relationship with those fellows and what 9/11 has meant to you?
Well, right after 9/11, we were in Hilton Head, and they brought down a group of firemen that were first responders. Engine 7 ladder 1 or engine 1 ladders. Engine 7 ladder 1, I believe. So it's about 7 blocks from World Trade Center. And met these guys, and I thought, man, these guys are impressive. They're humble. They're good people. And so we started inviting them up to our golf tournament here in Lexington. And I want them to be celebrities. And every year, Frank, you know this, they would bring up a piece of steel that they would have carved into a cross. They'd have badges from different fire stations that responded, and they'd put it in a little box or a nice framed piece. And there's more people around here that have those and say they're more proud of that than they are about anything they've ever got at an auction before. So we just kept a good friendship, and every time Olga and I go up to New York, we always go down and have lunch with the whole bunch. I want to tell you something. There's some good restaurants that are in New York. There's a fire station. They have gourmet cooks in that fire station.
Did you have 7 gourmet cooks at your fire?
Well, I tell you what, that's really gratifying to hear, Doug. I mean, about your relationship with the guys from downtown Manhattan and 9/11. But yeah, we had some guys. You know, the thing is that every shift you got 12, 14 guys working. So one guy can always cook one really good meal, maybe his specialty. So you got, you know, there's always, no matter who's working, you say, well, what's your story? What do you got today? You know, but yeah, that's terrific cooks.
Yeah, were you in Manhattan, Billy?
No, I was in the Bronx, South Bronx and Harlem, but I had retired actually before 9/11, Doug. And I went up to work on the dig. Of course, everybody went to work on the dig. I mean, it wasn't a question of when you were on the job or when did you respond. Everybody was at 9/11, and which was really gratifying is that the way the country came together behind that tragedy, rich and poor, left and right, Republican, Democrat, it didn't make any difference. You know, everybody came together with 9/11. If we could just carry on with that sentiment, we'd be a lot better shape today.
Well, Steve Rogers, when he had never been back to the site since it happened, and he took us when we were up there. I was with Brett Butler and his wife Eveline, and we all went to the site with Steve. And I knew it was emotional. He showed us exactly where he was standing when the towers went down. He said, you can see if it comes this way, we're all gone. But the tower went the other way. And it was very emotional for him. It became emotional for us. And you know, that goes along with that respect. My brother's a police officer, and I have so much respect for firemen and policemen and EMTs and any first responders. And and as a baseball player and somebody who did not serve in the military, people are always asking, well, what can we do to give to help those who are first responders and who serve? Well, that's why Johnny and I got involved with Hope for the Warriors and USA Cares, because, you know, they're always looking to help families. And believe me, they, in the police and fire industry, they go through as much PTSD, you know this, Billy, as much as some of the military folks too. So we're trying to do all we can to help give back. I know Rusty Staub was very instrumental in getting a fund going. And then what's it called? Tunnel to Towers now that I see.
The run, yeah. Tunnel to Towers.
Yeah, that looks like it's very successful. But we got a chance because of knowing our fire buddies, Danny and Steve. They called and said, you want to come up on New Year's? So 2 years ago, we came up, went to the firehouse. They escorted us downtown. We stood right underneath the ball with 1.5 million of our closest friends. It was awesome.
That's terrific.
That is terrific.
That's terrific. Well, we're about to wrap this up, but I'm sure we're going to go around for last questions for Derek.
Yes.
Can we hear you?
So, fishing. You got some fish in the background there. So
Yeah.
you're in Lexington?
Yes.
So what type of fishing do you do? I see you do bass fishing. Do you do all types or?
This is Mississippi asking Kentucky right now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we have no saltwater here, so it's all largemouth, smallmouth bass, a lot of crappie, bluegill, some trout, but mostly in our tournaments we fish for largemouth and smallmouth. And it's getting warmer up here now, so night fishing's starting to get better, and that's why I'm fishing a tournament tonight from 7 o'clock till 3 in the morning.
Wow.
And yeah, and it'll be about 80 boats tonight. Won't be a huge tournament, but it'll be a nice size. And I'm hoping we can go out, and it's always fun. And I'm doing it with my little brother, so anytime I do that, it's always a good night.
So night fishing, you guys use spotlights, or how's that work?
Yeah, we use what they call black lights.
Okay.
And you use a fluorescent line so you can see your line underneath these lights, and it's pretty cool. Get out there, and it's just, I mean, there's no other lights out there. You see these blue lights. Call them black lights, but they're blue lights.
Okay.
And you use the right kind of line so you can watch if your line jumps or moves or if a fish has it. It's really pretty cool.
That is cool. And then what lures do you use? Like, well, first of all, I'd like to know what your favorite lure is for the daytime, but I'm curious about night fishing too.
Right now, daytime's a little tough. Depends where the fish are, but they'll be flipping some kind of plastic creature bait into trees and bushes and stuff. Or the fish will be either there or out deep. At nighttime, they're going to move in a little bit to feed, so we'll be throwing some kind of worm, a plastic worm, and or plastic lizard, something like that.
Right. I love plastic worms.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
I love them more than too good.
They get caught in your teeth, though, don't they?
Hey, my mother-in-law, we had this little Yorkie, and I'd take the Yorkie's mouth and I'd swallow it. And my mother-in-law says, that's going to give you worms. And I went, so one night I got all my lures and I had them coming out here and everywhere, my nose. We sent a picture to my mother-in-law and said, you were right.
I got a question for you, Doug. Who's the toughest pitcher you ever faced?
J.R. Richard.
J.R. Richards, huh?
6'8", right-hander for the Houston Astros.
Yep, he got out of the game at age 30. He had a stroke, but he was nasty. Nolan Ryan was the scariest I've ever hit against, but J.R. Richards, 6'8", he had a slider that was 90 miles an hour that broke about a foot, so he could start it at your hip and it could still be a strike, and then he threw real hard too. But yeah, he was pretty intimidating. It was not fun to hit off of.
How about
he was scared.
How about the difference between the American League and the National League?
It wasn't much different. Well, no, it started getting pretty same. It wasn't much difference.
Interesting. The umpire had changed by then, so that they were all behind the home plate.
Because, they got rid of those big bubbles they used to wear.
Right.
And everybody, so, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of difference in the umpiring. It's just, I wasn't in the American League that long, but I'll never forget when I went over to Detroit. It was only the last 2 months of the season, and the Yankees were in town. We were playing them, so I was out taking ground balls at second base. And all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, Dougie." And I look up, and it was Billy Martin. And Billy Martin came over to me, and he just shook my hand. And he said, "Hey, welcome over to the American League." And I thought that was pretty cool.
Classy, very classy.
Yeah.
Were you at Yankee Stadium then? Or were you in Detroit?
Detroit.
Did you ever get to play in Yankee Stadium?
Yes. We were there, in the 76 World Series.
Right.
But I don't think we went back there that year. They'd already been by the time I got there. So no, we didn't go back to New York.
So what's it like to play and be on the field in a World Series in New York?
Well, I really wasn't on the field very much.
But you were introduced before the game.
Oh yeah, and the rest of the team. That's right.
Well,
here's what I had: really good seats.
Yep, you did.
Yep,
you did.
You know what? I thought I might get in. Sparky, the starting lineup played. The only extra other than pitchers that played in the 76 World Series was Danny Dreesen, who was the DH. First year they used the DH. And so the rest of us, none of the other players got to play.
Wow.
And I got on deck in the 7th game of the World Series in 1975, but I wasn't out there very long. I was out there long to realize, holy crap, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And,
Well, you know, when you were traded from the Mets, columnist George Vesey said that the Mets lost one of the nicest and the best players on the Mets. Well, after meeting you in this interview, brother, I can say that's accurate journalism, and that's the truth. It's a real pleasure. A real pleasure meeting you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all that you've done. Frank is a dear friend, and he's not only for what he helped us do with our golf tournament, but personally, just a gentleman. I've never called on him or asked him of anything that he's ever said no to. So he can't get me on Pebble, but other than that, you know, he's a pretty good guy.
Well, if you would sometimes be in Pebble, you might be able to get on to Pebble. I know you were there for like an hour and a half one day in
Maybe an hour and a half, yeah.
Yeah, maybe an hour and a half one day, and you had lunch with Chuck and Clarice up there in Pebble. But I want to say, oh yeah, for sure. I just want to say what a great honor it's been for me to be associated with Doug Flynn, the gentleman banker from Lexington, Kentucky.
Frank, you're the best. Thank you, and Billy. It's an honor to be on your show, and I can't wait to see you again. Give you a big hug.
Thank you, my
That'll
friend.
be my good fortune, brother. That's for sure.
Thanks, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Great
Doug.
show.
Thank you, Doug.
Bye.
Again.
Sweetheart.
Again.
A real sweetheart.
We could have made a two-parter out of it.
Oh, yeah. The guy, absolute sweetheart. I mean, what a terrific guy. You know, I got a great story. He was talking about how Joe West had called him out, you know, after he missed the base. And, you know, to this day, they still argue about it. It was a great story about marvelous Marv Thornberry, one of the great Mets.
Sure.
One of the well-known Mets, anyway. He had a triple one day, and they called him out because he missed first base. So Casey Stengel went out to argue with the umpire. He said, you know what? And he said, look, Casey, I don't want to get in an argument because he missed second. Which was pretty much Marv Thornberry's. What was said about him that it was like hiring Willie Sutton to be a bank teller.
Yeah. I know when the first Mets draft choice was Hobie Landreth. He was the first Mets draft choice, the first guy they ever picked. And they asked Casey, why did you draft Hobie Landreth? And Hobie Landreth was a catcher. He said, because you got to catch the ball or else nobody can play. Casey was a beauty. Casey was a beauty.
Unbelievable. What a fine interview. What a great guy. And I love the fact that he doesn't dwell on the glory days. You know, he did it. And, you know, God love him. I mean, a tremendous career. But now he's concentrating on what he can do for others. And, you know, he's taken to that dimension, you know, like yourself with the golf tournament and everything. That's just great stuff, man.
Yeah, and we'll try to find people like in a future show. We'll have Mike Freed on, a lawyer and marathoner in Jacksonville, Florida, who's raising millions of dollars for the indigent in Jacksonville as well. So we'll continue to try to bring you these stories. Hopefully you'll like them. Hopefully you'll stick with us. Hopefully you'll watch a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. You'll tune into our podcast. You'll well, I don't want to say read our books, but if you want to read our books, you can read our books also. But, you know, we'll have a diverse group of guests every week. And it's really, I'm thankful to Derek for having suggested this. And I'm thankful to you for being my partner.
Well, I got to thank you because I'm meeting some people that I never would have in a million years get a chance to meet. So my hat goes off to you. And, of course, yeah, I got to thank Derek for putting together this conflagration of wires. There's no way in the world me and you could ever figure this out. That's for shit.
No kidding. No kidding. You know, did you ever think, I was going to close, but before I do, if we were thrown back in time, knowing what we know today, what advantages could we take advantage? You couldn't have a cell phone. You couldn't have a television. You couldn't have a radio. What would you do if you were thrown back 500 years in time?
500 years in time?
Yeah. You know how to make a wheel.
Maybe.
You perhaps would know how to make a fire, but not really. Maybe.
I'm not much of the outdoors type. My wife is always kidding me. She does everything. She does anything that has to do mechanically, anything that has to be fixed, she does. I don't do
as
it.
does my wife. And if my wife can't do it, I find somebody who can.
My wife was me, you're so bad. She goes, you can't even dig a hole.
Right.
You can't dig a hole. I mean, how dumb do you got to be that you can't dig a hole?
Well, let's talk about digging holes. How big a hole do you think we could deep 500 years
500
years ago?
Oh, my God.
Of course, we couldn't have invented the shovel.
No, that would have been beyond me. I think I always love these questions that they ask on Facebook. If you had to get 2 words or 3 words, give advice to somebody, if they were being born 50 years ago, I would say buy Apple. Buy Apple. That's the best advice I can give. But that was a great interview, Frank. A terrific guy. So,
right.
I mean,
a really good one. Anyway, I think we've done enough damage for 1 week.
And again, the diversity of the show, I think, is something to be proud of. I love the people we're meeting. I mean, between producers and executive producers and actors and
lawyers and doctors.
It's been just a great ride, a great ride so far. And hopefully it continues.
Well, with that, say goodnight, Billy.
Good night to everybody out there. And thank you so much again for the support and for tuning in. And
AmicAmookandAMike.com. That's where you can find the podcast.
And don't forget Lamar's Gamble.
Don't forget Lamar's Gamble. Derek, you're the best.
Adios.
You guys are the best.
Next week's guest, comedy director, legend Howard Storm.
We'll see you next week.